Good evening. Welcome to Loveworld USA News. I'm Barbara Sam. First, a quick look at the top stories this evening. Dallas ICE facility shooter identified as 29-year-old Joshua Jan. Trump White House demands probe into escalator malfunction at United Nations. Federal judge dismisses Peter Schwartz lawsuit over FBI firing for anti-Trump tests. Texas enacts birth sex restroom law for public buildings and schools, becoming 20th state with strict restrictions. Arizona special election narrows GOP majority, advances Epstein files vote. And now to the news. Federal authorities have identified Joshua Jan, 29, as the gunman responsible for Wednesday's deadly attack on a U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement ICE facility in Dallas, Texas. Jan opened fire from a nearby rooftop around 7 a.m., killing one person and wounding two others before taking his own life. Police says the victims were detainees inside an unmarked ICE transportation van. Investigators revealed that ammunition recovered at the scene carried an anti-ICE engraving, signaling a political motive. FBI Director Kash Patel condemned the attack as part of a disturbing pattern of violence targeting law enforcement. Patel said the Bureau and its partners will continue to pursue individuals who attempt to intimidate or harm officers carrying out their duties. The shooting comes just weeks after another ambush on an ICE facility in Pearland, Texas, where multiple suspects targeted law enforcement. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton called the Dallas attack a despicable assault on law and order, and quote, he said left-wing political rhetoric is fueling violence against officers. Governor Greg Abbott also pledged that Texas would continue to support ICE operations and that the violence will not deter immigration enforcement efforts. Vice President J.D. Vance and Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem both argued urged an end to political attacks on ICE, warning that attempts to equate immigration officers with oppressive regimes have emboldened radicals. Noem stressed that ICE agents are men and women serving their communities and deserve protection and respect as they enforce federal immigration law. Let's take a look.
Police have identified the gunman in a deadly shooting at an ICE facility in Dallas as 29-year-old Joshua Jan. His mugshot from a 2015 arrest. This is in Collin County for marijuana possession. FBI says that the shooting is being investigated as a, quote, act of targeted violence. Two detainees were killed. The third is in serious condition. Officials say Jan was armed with a rifle, opened fire from a rooftop, later took his own life with a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Investigators say they found rounds near his body with anti-ICE messages written on them. No law enforcement officers were hurt in the shooting. Senator Ted Cruz, who spoke at a news briefing this morning, calling for an end to this kind of violence.
This has very real consequences. Look, in America, we disagree. That's fine. That's the democratic process. But your political opponents are not Nazis. We need to learn to work together without demonizing each other, without attacking each other.
President Donald Trump's arrival at the United Nations General Assembly in New York was briefly disrupted Tuesday when an escalator carrying him and First Lady Melania Trump suddenly stopped. The couple proceeded by walking to the second floor before Trump delivered his scheduled speech. The White House later raised concerns over the incident, with Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt demanding accountability if foul play was involved. Leavitt stated if the malfunction was intentional, those responsible at the UN should be fired and investigated immediately. She reiterated this and adding that the Secret Service and other U.S. officials were reviewing the matter. Trump also experienced a teleprompter malfunction during his remarks, which he noted both during and after his speech. In response, the United Nations said no evidence suggested foul play. Officials explained that the escalator's built-in safety mechanism likely triggered when a videographer filming the president from an unusual position interfered with the machine's sensor. The system, they added, is designed to stop automatically to prevent accidents or injuries. UN technicians reset the escalator after the president's delegation reached the second floor and reviewed the machine's control systems, confirming that the safety feature had activated as programmed. While the UN has not yet provided details on the teleprompter issue, it emphasized that equipment failures can occur and that standard safety protocols were followed. Let's take a look.
All I got from the United Nations was an escalator that on the way up stopped right in the middle. If the First Lady wasn't in great shape, she would have fallen. But she's in great shape. We're both in good shape. We both stood. And then a teleprompter that didn't work. These are the two things I got from the United Nations, a bad escalator and a bad teleprompter.
A federal judge has dismissed former FBI agent Peter Strzok's lawsuit challenging his firing from the Bureau over anti-Trump text messages. Strzok, who played a leading role in the Crossfire Hurricane investigation into President Donald Trump's 2016 campaign, argued that his dismissal violated his First and Fifth Amendment rights. Judge Amy Berman Jackson, an Obama appointee to the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia, ruled that the FBI's interest in maintaining public trust outweighed Strzok's personal interest in expressing political opinions on his government-issued phone while overseeing political sensitive investigations. She concluded that allowing such conduct will have undermined confidence in the Bureau's impartiality. The court also rejected Strzok's due process, finding no evidence that he had a contractual right to continue employment. Jackson noted that Strzok had received proper notice and an opportunity to respond before his firing was finalized under then FBI Director Christopher Wray's leadership. The full memorandum opinion remains under seal for now, though the court has asked the parties to state by September 30th whether any portion should remain sealed. Strzok's firing came during President Trump's first term, after text messages surfaced showing his strong bias against the president while handling the Russia investigation. Watch this.
Former FBI agent Peter Strzok has lost his lawsuit claiming his 2018 firing violated his First Amendment rights. Strzok, who was dismissed after sending anti-Trump text messages during the president's first term, filed the suit in 2019. On September 23rd, U.S. District Judge Amy Berman Jackson ruled, while the firing may be controversial, it did not violate Strzok's constitutional rights. She said he failed to prove his dismissal was illegal despite extensive testimony. Strzok, a 20-year FBI veteran, exchanged texts with FBI lawyer Lisa Page, suggesting ways the FBI might stop Trump from being elected. Trump later used those messages to claim bias in the Russia investigation. Strzok has denied personal views affected his work. An Inspector General report found no political bias in the FBI's probe.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott has signed a measure requiring people to use restrooms in state-owned buildings and public schools, including universities, that match the sex listed on their original birth certificates. The law, which takes effect December 4th, makes Texas the 20th state to restrict restroom access for transgender people and imposes fines of up to $120,000 on institutions that violate the policy. The statute reaches beyond restrooms. It requires jails and prisons to house inmates according to birth sex and bars domestic violence shelters from serving transgender women or anyone assigned male at birth, with the exception for minor children of women receiving services. The bill penalizes were toughened shortly after or shortly before final passage, raising fines from $25,000 for initial violation to $125,000 for subsequent offenses, among the most punitive bathroom restrictions in the country. Abbott called the measure a common-sense public safety step. Supporters, including bill author Representative Angela Orr, said it is intended to protect women and girls in sex-segregated spaces. Opponents led by Democratic lawmakers argue the law is government overreach that will expose transgender Texans and others who don't conform to gender stereotypes to harassment. They pointed to a 2018 Williams Institute study that found allowing transgender people to use facilities aligned with their gender identity does not increase safety risks. The legislation capped a decade of debate in Texas where similar efforts failed in 2015 and 2017 amid national backlash to Carolina's since repeal bathroom bill. Civil rights groups and LGBTQ activists says they expect swift legal challenges to the new law on constitutional and federal civil rights grounds. Watch this.
This is just common sense.
The common sense law the governor is referring to is the Texas Women's Privacy Act, also known as the bathroom bill. The law will require people to only use bathrooms in government buildings and public schools that align with their biological sex. It also requires jails and family violence shelters to follow rules of biological sex, and it won't allow trans women into spaces designated for women and girls. Now, there's also a complaint process for it, and here's how the complaint process would work. Alleged violations must first be reported to the government entity or school involved. Now, that agency then has 3 days to respond and correct the issue. If they don't, the complaint can be escalated to the Attorney General's office, which has the power to investigate and levy fines. The penalty starts at $25,000 for a first violation and jumps to $125,000 for each additional offense. The law also opens the door for individuals to sue entities directly, and it's set to take effect December 4th.
The news will be back after this break.
Pastor Chris in 1 Billion Homes Project is all about making sure the voice of our man of God, Pastor Chris Oyakhilome, arrives exactly when someone needs it the most. It's a global campaign to saturate the world with the gospel of our Lord Jesus like never before.
The gospel is going to go into places that it never was before, into disciplines and areas that it never was before, and establish a higher way.
Make a global impact today with your sponsorship of Pastor Chris in 1 Billion Homes Project. For every home you sponsor, you send the gospel where it's never gone. You become the reason someone receives life, a second chance, and finds Jesus. Through the dynamic Pastor Chris in 1 Billion Homes Project, we've been able to expand our global mission, touching more souls, more regions, and producing a wave of powerful testimonies from people whose lives have been forever changed. Your financial support as a Loveworld USA partner is not just generous, it's supernatural power for global impact. Let's keep sending the gospel into every home through the Pastor Chris in 1 Billion Homes Project. Sign up today and sponsor any of the following categories.
It's time for you to give the right sacrifice, the right seed, because it's time for you to get the right harvest.
You can sponsor Pastor Chris in 1 Billion Homes Project by calling or going on our website now. Sign up to be Pastor Chris in 1 Billion Homes Project partner today. God bless you.
Welcome back. Democrat Adelita Grijalva has won Arizona's 7th Congressional District special election, defeating Republican Daniel Gutierrez by a wide margin. The seat was vacated after the death of her father, longtime Democratic Representative Raul Grijalva, earlier this year. Once sworn in, Adelita Grijalva will become the first Latino to represent Arizona in Congress. Her victory is expected to give Democrats the 218th signature needed on a bipartisan discharge petition that would force a vote to compel the Department of Justice to release all records related to Jeffrey Epstein. The position, led by Republican Representative Thomas Massey and Democratic Representative Ro Khanna, has gained momentum in recent weeks after another Democratic special election win in Virginia. Both Grijalva and Gutierrez had pledged to sign it if elected. The outcome tightens the balance of power in the House of Representatives. Republicans will hold 219 seats, while Democrats will have 214 seats, leaving the GOP with little room to maneuver. Some Republican-led states are moving to redraw congressional maps ahead of next year's midterm elections, in line with President Donald Trump's push to expand the Republican majority. While Grijalva has emphasized progressive causes such as education, environmental policy, and Medicaid protections, her election carries immediate national implications due to the Epstein files vote. The release of those documents could expose connections involving powerful figures, a matter that lawmakers in both parties say should be addressed with transparency and accountability. Treasury Secretary Scott Basson said Wednesday that New York City should not expect federal rescue funds if mayoral candidate Zoran Madami enacts his proposed suite of socialist-leaning economic policies, warning the city will come to the federal government for a bailout, in quote, and declaring his answer would mirror the 1970s rebuff of New York, drop dead, in quote. Bassett, a former Wall Street investor now serving in the Trump administration, argued that measures such as free bus services, city-run grocery stores, and rent freezes would erode the city's tax base by accelerating the outflow of high earners and businesses. He pointed to recent wealth migration from Manhattan to Palm Beach County as evidence of broader trends. Madami, a 33-year-old Democratic socialist who won the Democratic primary on a message centered on affordability, has rattled financial executives and some business leaders. Hedge fund manager Bill Ackman has vowed to bankroll a rival candidacy, contending Madami's plan will destroy jobs and cause businesses and wealthy taxpayers to leave. Madami's campaign did not immediately respond to a request for comment. The clash underscores the state of New York City fiscal choices and the limits of federal backstoppers. While cities can seek federal support through Congress in severe downturns or disasters, the Treasury Secretary does not unilaterally approve municipal bailouts, and any assistance typically comes with strict conditions. Basson's comments signaled the administration's posture, sympathetic to budget discipline, unsympathetic to local policies it views as risky. Take a look.
Mr. Mondami, who's running for mayor of New York, they are American Peronist. They want to do to the U.S. economy what the Perones, the General Anavita, did to the U.S. They want to take control. So, and I guarantee you, and there are not a lot of things in life that are sure, that New York City will be coming to the federal government for a bailout if the Mondami plans are implemented.
Xcel Energy has announced it expects to pay about $640 million to resolve lawsuits alleging its equipment helped spark the 2021 Marshall Fire, Colorado's most destructive wildfire, which killed 2 people and destroyed nearly 1,000 homes across suburbs between Denver and Boulder. The announcement came hours before jury selection was set to begin in a combined trial for homeowners and insurers. The Minneapolis-based utility said the settlement are agreements in principle and do not include an administration or admission of liability. Xcel added that plaintiffs still must decide whether to opt into the deal. Quest Corp, which leases space on Xcel's poles for fiber optic cable, also reached agreements in principle to settle related claims, according to the company. Investigators concluded the blaze had 2 origins, one arcing on Xcel's power line during extreme winds, and embers from a smoldering scrapwood fire on a nearby 12 tribes communal property that had been buried 2 days earlier in a manner firefighters had approved. The 2 ignitions, fanned by gusts that reached 100 miles per hour after months of drought and little winter snow, merged into a fast-moving inferno that caused an estimated $2 billion in damages. Authorities declined to pursue criminal charges against either Excel or the religious group after an 18-month probe. The fire claimed the life of 69-year-old man who lived near the ignition area and a 91-year-old woman last seen to rescue her dogs in Superior. We recognize that the fire and its aftermath have been difficult and painful for many, and we hope that our and the telecom defendants' in quote contributions in today's settlement can bring some closure for the community, Excel CEO Bob Frizzle said in a statement. Let's take a look.
Will forever be one of the most horrifying, shocking disasters in Colorado history. The Marshall Fire, which started on December 30th, 2021, in the middle of the holiday season, well outside of fire season, and it grew quickly. It started in the suburbs, so its trail of destruction was left behind in a sudden, devastating way.
50,000 people had to evacuate Boulder County at a moment's notice. Some sat in bumper-to-bumper traffic, just trying to leave as the smoke and the flames closed in. 2 people were killed that day. More than 1,000 homes were destroyed.
Almost 4 years later, some of those lots are still sitting empty. Today's news is that Xcel Energy has agreed to a $640 million settlement.
The news continues after this break. Stay with us.
It's easy to set up, quick to start, and packed with value. Smarter streaming starts here with the Alpha TV Stick. Just plug and stream anytime, anywhere. Discover a curated lineup of content designed to inspire, live broadcasts and global events, inspirational films and series, children's programming, healing and teaching sessions, all on demand.
With millions of downloads worldwide, the Alpha TV app is transforming lives across the globe. And now, we're on a mission to reach 1 billion downloads of the Alpha TV app, and you can be part of it. Join the global wave with 1 billion Alpha TV app downloads worldwide. Bring the higher life into every home. Order your Alpha TV Stick today and experience smarter streaming. Alpha, the higher life is here.
Welcome back. Typhoon Rasaga made landfall on China's southern coast Wednesday after authorities evacuated nearly 2 million people hours after the storm's passage over Taiwan left at least 17 dead and others missing when a landslide formed Barrier Lake burst in Hualien County. The storm, downgraded from super to severe but still highly destructive, struck Hailing Island in Jiangyin and Xinjiang Province around 1700 local time. China's meteorological authorities recorded peak winds up to 241 kilometers, that's about 150 miles, in Taxing County before landfall. Sustained winds over land held nearly 144 kilometers with higher gusts as Rasaga tracked west, bringing territorial, slow-moving rains. Major Pearl River Delta cities, including Zhuhai, Shenzhen, and Zhugan, braced for storm surges and issued landslide red alerts in mountainous areas. Police in coastal districts order residents off streets while port, schools, and many businesses remain shut. In Taiwan, Premier Shang Zhang-tai ordered an inquiry into evacuations failures, and the sudden failure of the Matai Creek Barrier Lake unleashed what geologists liken to a tsunami from the mountains, washing away bridges, inundating ground floors, and trapping residents on upper stories and Gufoff townships. Crews contained door-to-door searches amid thick mud and debris as a forward disaster command post and military units supported rescues. Rasaga also battered Hong Kong's coastline, where 90 people were reported injured as the observatory issued its highest number 10 signal, grounding flights and closing schools. Earlier in the week, the year's strongest storm, equivalent to a Category 5 at its peak, flooded remote northern islands of the Philippines, displacing thousands and causing additional deaths. Forecasters say Rasaga would weaken inland, but warned that life-threatening flooding and landslides could persist for days across southern China. Watch this.
Typhoon Ragasa, the world's most powerful tropical cyclone this year, made landfall in southern China on Wednesday after killing 15 people in Taiwan and lashing Hong Kong with ferocious winds and heavy rains. In Taiwan's eastern Hualien County, 17 people remained missing after a barrier lake overflowed and sent a wall of water into a town, the fire department said on Wednesday. Many residents in the tourist town of Guangfu complained there was insufficient warning from authorities, usually used to moving people out of potential danger zones swiftly, as the island is frequently hit by typhoons. As rains inundated Taiwan, Hong Kong grappled with huge waves that crashed over areas of the Asian financial hub's eastern and southern shoreline.
Former Malawian President Peter Mutharika has won last week's election with 57% of the vote, the Electoral Commission announced after 8 days of verification. Incumbent Lazarus Chakwera received 33% and conceded before the final tally, phoning Mutharika to congratulate him on what he called a historic win. In a televised address, Chakwera acknowledged reports of irregularities and anomalies, but said they did not undermine the overall outcome, citing respect for voters. Collective win have to have a change of government, end quote. The commission said it used the full review window to address complaints, mindful of a 2019 vote won by Mutharika that was later annulled by the courts for widespread procedural flaws before Chakwera prevailed in the 2020 return. Mutharika, a former law professor who governed from 2014 to 2020, returns to office amid a deep economic crisis marked by persistent shortages of fuel and foreign currency and inflation near 30%. Prices for staples have soared in the capital, Linwanga, intensifying pressure on the incoming administration to restore stability, echoing Mutharika's first-term pledge to rein in inflation. The 85-year-old campaigned on a return to proven leadership, a message that resonated with voters frustrated by power cuts, corruptions, allegations, and rising living costs during Chakwera's tenure. Supporters flooded streets in celebration after the concession, while questions lingered about Mutharika's health and stamina after a low-profile campaign. The swearing-in must occur within 7 to 30 days of the results. Watch this.
Former Malawi leader Peter Mutharika was declared the winner of the presidential election on Thursday. He won the election by a significant margin, securing 57% of the votes, while the current president Lazarus Chakwera received 33% and conceded defeat earlier that day. This announcement marks a major political comeback for the 85-year-old Mutharika, who previously served as president from 2014 to 2020 before losing to Chakwera by a wide margin.
Just before we end the news today, a quick look at tomorrow's weather forecast. And to end the news today, a quick recap of the headlines. Dallas ICE facility shooter identified as 29-year-old Joshua Jahan. Trump White House demands probe into escalator malfunction at United Nations. Federal judge dismisses Peter Schwartz's lawsuit over FBI firing for anti-Trump texts. Texas enacts birth sex restroom law for public buildings and schools, becoming 20th state with such restrictions. Arizona special election narrows GOP majority, advances Epstein files vote. And that's the news for today. Join us at the same time tomorrow for more news. I'm Barbara Sam. Good night and God bless you.